Saying goodbye for the last time is always hard. The pain of physical separation, but there's so much more that happens before and after that. I'm Amelia, 45 years old, living single on my own. Why am I single at this age? Well, it's just that I haven't found the right one. Not that I never wanted to marry. I have a brother, Liam, 49 years old. Liam is married with 2 young boys in elementary school. Mom's been diagnosed with dementia. That phone call from Dad changed our lives completely. Dad, I realized it too late, he said with a hint of regret. There were signs, like Mom's forgetfulness, but he thought it was just part of getting older. By the time she was diagnosed, it had progressed from the early to middle stages. She probably has about 3 years left, the doctor estimated. Dad said, I'll take care of her myself. But Dad doing everything on his own is impossible, I thought. Dad mentioned she's gradually losing control over her bodily functions. Hearing this, maybe we should consider a nursing home, I suggested. However, Dad had said, if it were me, I'd want to stay at home until the end. And he remained firm in his decision. Then at least let's consider daycare. Liam and I decided to discuss sharing the costs and went to Dad's house. That day, my sister-in-law came too. If my father-in-law says he can handle it, maybe that's okay, sister-in-law said. If Dad gets overwhelmed with caregiving, it'll be a problem for me. But I insisted. Dad and Mom raised me without any hardships, and Liam felt the same way. I don't want Dad to overdo it, and I want Mom to have a good end, he said. Amidst all this, I need to go to the bathroom, Mom said. Dad tried to help her, but she couldn't make it in time and had an accident in the hallway. Liam and I helped clean the floor and assisted her with changing her pajamas. Doing this every day would be too much for Dad. It's too hard for Dad to do this alone. Let's at least get daycare. Liam and I will cover the costs, I suggested. Then my sister-in-law, why do we have to pay? She objected. I don't know what kind of parents they were to you, but to me they're strangers. Why should I pay for someone else? I couldn't believe she would say this in front of her husband's family. Sister-in-law looked outraged. Helping each other as a family is natural. Liam and I grew up receiving love and care without expecting anything in return. If we don't repay that kindness now, when will we? And no one is asking for you to provide care, so why do I have to hear such words from you? Sister-in-law looked outraged. Her expression turned to anger. What? Caregiving? That's impossible. This is the first time I've seen an elderly person lose control like this. I can't imagine taking care of someone so messy and smelly. Why should I do such a dirty, unpaid job? And about the care facility costs, if father-in-law is in trouble, he should pay. Why should the children have to? I won't pay a dime. That's it. I'm leaving. With that, she stormed out. Liam went after her. Sorry, this is all I have for now, and handed me $100 at the front door. Feeling down, I returned inside where Dad said to me, Amelia, you see, Mom is turning from a woman back into a little girl. Soon she'll be a baby again, returning to a time when she couldn't speak. His words resonated with me deeply. I met Mom as an adult, so getting to know her as she reverts to stages I never knew makes me happy. I don't see it as caregiving, but as precious time to experience all phases of Mom's life. That's why I want to be with her every second. He tenderly stroked Mom's hair. That Dad would think this way, I was moved by Dad's profound love, much deeper than anything I could compare to. I couldn't help but cry. Still, I knew caregiving couldn't be done alone. I moved back to my parents' house to help with caregiving while continuing my job. Caregiving was far from easy. There were nights I was woken up, and times she hurled shocking insults. I realized that entrusting care to professionals was a valid option. It was that challenging. But Dad was aging too, and I wanted to fulfill his wish. One day, while we were taking turns with the care, "You deserve a break. It's your company's summer vacation, right? I'm truly grateful for all you do. Why don't you go out and enjoy yourself for a day? I'll take care of Mom that day," Dad said. Grateful for Dad's kindness, I decided to visit a cafe with a friend I'd reconnected with in the neighborhood. It had been a while since we'd last met, as I couldn't see them often while away from home. Having some time for myself felt great, and it was fun to chat with my friend. "How have you been lately?" She naturally started the conversation. "I've been dealing with Mom's caregiving. It's tough, but there's a sense of duty given all she's done for me," I replied. "Huh?" To my surprise, my friend asked, "Isn't Liam's wife taking care of your mom?" She questioned. "What? What are you talking about?" I asked in return, recalling the day my sister-in-law refused daycare with such vehemence. It didn't leave me with a good feeling. You know, Liam's kids are in the same grades as my older and younger ones. Last year, I was an officer in the PTA. Liam's house is in this neighborhood. It's a small world indeed. I continued listening to her story. You know how every year there's a bit of a tussle over who becomes a PTA officer? And we always do a pre-survey asking for reasons why someone can't do it? Liam's wife wrote caregiving as her reason, but, you know, nobody really wants to take on the role, so we still call to request. When I called her, "My husband's busy with work, and both my father-in-law and sister-in-law have left the care of my mother-in-law to me. They've just left her alone, so I've had no choice but to take on all the nursing responsibilities. It's simply too much." She said something like that. I was so angry, my hand shook as I held my cup. I can't believe her. She hasn't done any caregiving, not even once. It's been me and Dad all along, I said. "Yeah, I figured. She's always been pretty selfish and erratic." Before using caregiving as an excuse, she'd write on the PTA surveys for her younger kid, "I'll volunteer for my older kid, and for her older kid, I'll volunteer for my younger kid." Even if what Amelia and her sister-in-law say are different, I believe you, Amelia. Don't worry. That was fine for my friend, but not for me. Knowing my sister-in-law's calculating nature made me dislike her even more. And so the time came for caregiving to end. It was inevitable. We had seen the funeral and wake coming, so Dad and I had already arranged everything. Liam came to the wake. "I'm sorry. Thanks for moving back home and taking care of everything," he said. "Yeah, it's okay, Liam. I know you're always tied up with overtime and work on weekends," I replied. Then my sister-in-law arrived. "She's gone, huh?" "Yes. No more need for caregiving." "Congratulations." Did she just say congratulations? My mind went blank. Well, of course. Caregiving is over. You're free now. Just one more person to care for. And then there's the inheritance, split 3 ways between you, me, and my husband. Congratulations on getting closer to a big payday. She said it so casually, like it was just small talk. This woman lacks so much common sense. She doesn't understand the appropriate time and place, and her words are just as bad. At the funeral, something even more unforgivable happened. During the final farewell, Dad kissed Mom's forehead, and while tears fell onto it, he whispered, "I'll be joining you soon." Then, unbelievably, sister-in-law tapped Dad on the shoulder and said, "Yes, that will be soon." I almost lunged at her, but Liam just managed to hold me back. "I'm so sorry, really sorry," Liam said, pulling me into another room, apologizing over and over. "Just let it go now. This is my way of thanking you for all you've done," Liam said, offering a bag of money. It wasn't enough to calm my anger. I swore I'd make that woman pay. A month later, the opportunity came. "I'm truly sorry for dragging you into my selfishness, Amelia. You've suffered through caregiving, but it gave us 3 memorable years with Mom." "Thank you. As a small recompense, I'm leaving most of the land and property to you. I don't intend to be a burden, so if it comes to it, I'll go to a facility," Dad said to me. Dad had already informed Liam about this over the phone. "I understand. Amelia went through a lot because of me, Liam also said. The inheritance wasn't from Mom, who had just passed away. She didn't have any property in her name. All the land was under Dad's name, who was still in good health. Dad planned to leave most of it to me when he passed away. Before storing his handwritten will at the Legal Affairs Bureau, he wanted Liam and me to review its contents. After having lunch together, let's spend the afternoon reminiscing about Mom. Just the three of us, I suggested. But that afternoon, sister-in-law showed up. What's this about inheritance discussion? I heard from my husband. This is ridiculous. The eldest son, my husband, should naturally inherit the house and land. We're taking the inheritance, she declared. Why are you trying to change what's traditionally done? She demanded aggressively. She didn't understand any traditions. I knew you'd show up. Always so greedy and self-centered, I said with a half smile and a sigh. The one who doesn't understand is you, sister-in-law. The inheritance has nothing to do with you. Liam agrees, and it's a matter only for the three of us here. What? I have rights too. You didn't even invite me, and now you're just telling me the outcome? Is this some kind of harassment against me, the daughter-in-law? Greedy and self-centered, that's you, she yelled. Sister-in-law, you're not a legal heir or anything. You're not Dad's young daughter, I pointed out. Sister-in-law, lacking common sense, was convinced she had rights. She had this bizarre idea of splitting the inheritance 3 ways. I had to set her straight. Do you remember what you said to us? I don't know what kind of parents they were to you, but to me they're strangers. Why should I pay for someone else? You said that yourself. Strangers don't inherit anything. Sister-in-law was visibly frustrated, still not accepting the situation. Liam continued. It's only right that Amelia gets more. I'm truly grateful for her supporting Dad and ensuring Mom had a peaceful end. That's why I agreed to Dad's decision. What? Why would you agree? Are you trying to be too good? That's one thing. This is another, sister-in-law retorted. It was tough doing all the caregiving. And it turns out, sister-in-law, you've been claiming to do it all by yourself. Sister-in-law looked shocked. I heard it from a friend. You used it as an excuse to skip PTA duties for 3 years. So I told that friend the truth. You never did any caregiving. So you could have taken that role. I even suggested they nominate you next time. Still going to insist you did the caregiving? You can't produce any health monitoring records, can you? I wrote them daily for the hospital submissions. I told my friend in charge of the PTA to ask for those records if you try to dodge the responsibility again. Pretending to care for someone to skip duties and then expecting the same inheritance as the actual caregiver is just outrageous. But still, it's not right, sister-in-law stubbornly insisted. If it's about the inheritance, we have children. They should have a right to inherit too. Since Amelia is single and childless, we should get more, right? Single and childless. Her words could easily be misconstrued by anyone listening. That's when it happened. Suddenly, Liam slammed his hand on the table. Enough! What about the children? He shouted at sister-in-law. I had never seen Liam so angry. I was taken aback, but sister-in-law was even more stunned. Liam continued firmly. Are you still talking about inheritance rights? Thinking about who the money and the inheritance belong to before bringing up children who have no rights in this. Besides, you haven't let Mom and Dad see the kids since they started kindergarten. Indeed, I hadn't seen Liam's children since moving back home except the funeral. I thought they were just being considerate because of Mom's situation. You told me before. The kids don't want to go to Grandpa's house because it smells like traditional Chinese medicine and it makes them cry. And when I brought them to the funeral and asked them, we never said that, both said. It does smell, sister-in-law lifting her head screamed. I couldn't help it. That sounds more like your opinion, not the children's, I interjected. You always act like it's fine as long as you're okay, dragging others into your schemes, stealing their kindness, and sacrificing them for your own benefit. Enough is enough. Even with this inheritance, my sister, who did so much caregiving. Dad, use every single dollar. Go on one more trip to the places you loved with Mom. Make it a pilgrimage of memories. Spend every last dollar, Dad. Take a trip to the places you loved with Mom. Make it a pilgrimage of cherished memories. With that, Liam slammed the divorce papers on the table. At the daycare discussion, the funeral, and now, I can't imagine growing old with you. I don't see us having a relationship like Dad and Mom had. It's over. Sister-in-law responded, "This is too sudden. It's too much." Her voice trembled. Meanwhile, I, having never been married, was just stunned to see an actual divorce document for the first time. "If you resist, I'll get a lawyer involved. I have records of all the terrible things you've done," Liam asserted. Sister-in-law started to sob, the sound echoing in the living room. I gently embraced Dad's shoulder, which was shaking. Dad's shoulders were trembling. Grandpa took us to the Dodger Stadium. The children came back with megaphones and towels. The stadium was so big. The ball was really fast. Their voices were full of excitement. After the divorce, Liam moved in with his 2 children. He'd been contributing financially to the household. When they first arrived, "Does it smell?" Dad, out of concern, had asked his grandchildren. "Yeah, not at all. Mom's perfume smells stronger," they replied cheerfully, making us all laugh. Dad returned from Dodger Stadium, happily opening a beer. "I need to live long enough to see these kids bring home their brides and introduce them to me," he said, beginning to speak. Reflecting back to the funeral, he had solemnly said, "I'll be joining you soon." It felt like a complete turnaround from what he had said at Mom's coffin, but it's good to see him lively. The truth is, the kids' arrival had brightened him up considerably. After sister-in-law divorced Liam, he naturally got custody, so she no longer had to be involved in PTA duties. However, during the divorce proceedings, Liam explained everything to her parents. Outraged by her actions, they disowned her. Sister-in-law's parents said, "In exchange for disowning sister-in-law, please let us see the kids." It seems they asked for this. Occasionally, Liam takes the kids to visit their maternal grandparents. Sister-in-law's way of avoiding PTA duties was so extreme that the rumor spread among local moms, probably making her feel too uncomfortable. It wasn't long before she moved away. In fact, "I wonder if she even has the money to move," Liam remarked. So the move probably left her in dire financial straits. I haven't heard of her finding a job since the divorce, so it seems unlikely she'd find one after moving. Knowing sister-in-law, "Too tiring, too smelly," she probably complains, being picky about her job choices. I think it might be good to her to be pushed to a point where she can't afford to be so choosy. A year later, wanting to keep fresh flowers for Mom, who loved them, at the altar, I went to buy flowers every Sunday. "I don't want to let the altar go without flowers," Dad said, "so I've been buying flowers every Sunday." "It's been a year now," said the florist. "Yes, it has," I replied. "Do you miss your mom?" he asked. "Well, yes, but the caregiving, though tough, created good memories for our family, and I'm glad I could make those memories for Dad," I answered while paying. When I looked up, he handed me 2 bouquets. "Huh?" I said. "One is for you," he said, shyly smiling. "How about making some memories with me?" he suggested, offering a small bouquet of gerberas. I hugged the bouquet, smiling.
"All right, everyone's presentations are done," Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. and he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. but it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hope to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.